is a state case that happened back 2018. Why there is a evidentiary type hearing going on right now. I don't know that much about the case, but apparently something's been going on. So, okay, so this was originally justified and dismissed. The DA brought it back. Um, Judges ruled apparently the case has been dismissed, but we're going to get into the reasoning why and all that, and check this short video out from Court TV and listen to the judge.
The burden to show probable cause that the defendant's use of force was not statutorily justified. The argument that state makes is, in part at least, the effort to hide the knife, but and this is just a probable cause hearing, like the state says. But even at a probable cause hearing, if you're trying to hide evidence, the last thing you do would be either call 911 or Mr. Hill's mother, and that's what she did. Who knows where things fall after a stabbing, or if she put it in the trash or put it in the sink. And where the blood is, I didn't see anything that helps the state at all. The evidence I've heard today clearly shows that Mr. Hill has a reputation for violence, even amongst his family, and in their opinion, he's violent. And to some extent, even when
she knew right then that she was going to be leaving,
try to hedge on that, other incidents of specific instances of conduct came in to impeach the testimony, and it just shows that he has beaten his girlfriend, the defendant in this case, savagely on several occasions. He's beaten his own mother. He's beaten his own grandma.
God.
Again, they hedge on that. All three of those folks are enablers. The defendant's an enabler, the mother's an enabler, the grandmother's an enabler. And so nothing ever came to the court. I think that's clear from the evidence. If so, I think Mr. Haney would have put that into evidence. But something did come to the court in Wichita. And that's, of course, one way to show the defendant's character for violence, domestic violence in this case. It shows the case law here says where self-defense is an issue, as in this case, in this homicide case, or in any homicide case, evidence of the turbulent character of the deceased is admissible. Such evidence may consist of general reputation, evidence that we've heard here today of the deceased, general reputation in the community, and specific instances of conduct may be shown by conviction of a crime. And then we have the 2013 convictions of domestic violence against that victim. The people that were very close across the street, the Stewarts, of course, were called by the mother. And of course, the mother, I believe it's true that, if you're why wouldn't you call the police at that point? Unless you're continuing this enabling behavior. You call Melissa Stewart to go calm it down and without getting your son sent to prison. I understand why people stand in the way of the right thing when they're protecting their own child. I get that. And so that's all that is. And then they get over there and find that he's in effect dying. We know now he's dying. So the question is, with all the beatings that all of these women have endured at the hands of him, And she, of course, was aware of all that. It sounded like the reputation that he had was there. And of course, she knew firsthand how much stronger he was than her. She's a petite woman. I don't know. I won't guess the weight, but very light, looks like to me. And it's the strength difference between men and women. And if you don't really need to guess about it too much, because you can see the photos of the times that he has beaten her. He's broken her jaw twice. So the question is, she testified she was trying to save the life of.
Audio went out.
About her, so first is her subjective state of mind. Did she feel it was the use of force was necessary? Did she testify to that? And so that's clear. So that's the first prong that she has to cross. But the prong for me to judge right now, first of all, I checked that box. She's checked that box. Said so repeatedly to people in interviews. Nothing very inconsistent about it at all. I don't know how soon you have to say it when the police arrive, but I'm not sure she's even sure what she did, her testimony, but she did believe she had saved the life of her child. So the question then becomes whether or not the use of force was objectively reasonable. And of course it was. There really isn't any question about that. From the evidence that I see here today, it was objectively reasonable. It would have been, to me, objectively unreasonable not to have done something. The only evidence I've heard is that he was in that vortex of violence that night that he'd been in, for a good portion of his life. And that unfortunately, now Ms. Pearson had to do something she obviously didn't want to do. She wasn't prepared to do it, and broke down afterwards, started calling the mom to get 911 called and all of that. She wasn't trying to hide anything. She just collapsed. So, long story short, I'll write an opinion about this. It'll be, probably better than what I'm announcing here, but this is a pretty easy one for me. That the defense's motion for immunity is granted and the case is dismissed. You are free to go. This hearing is concluded.
So at the end of the day, the judge decided that.
Thank God the judge got that one right. I said good. We're gonna let this play and then we'll do some talking. Might look at some negative comments. I'm sure there's some there.
How much pain medication are you taking? That was a very routine question that changed my life. It was July 2015, about 2 months after I'd nearly lost my foot in a serious motorcycle accident. So I was back in my orthopedic surgeon's office for yet another follow-up appointment. I looked at my wife, Sadia. We did some calculating. About 115 milligrams oxycodone, I responded.
Damn.
Maybe more.
It's a lot.
I was nonchalant, having given this information to many doctors many times before. But this time was different. My doctor turned serious and he looked at me and said, "Travis, that's a lot of opioids. You need to think about getting off the meds now." In 2 months of escalating prescriptions, this was the first time that anyone had expressed concern. Indeed, this was the first real conversation I'd had about my opioid therapy, period. I had been given no warnings, no counseling, no plan, just lots and lots of prescriptions.
Yep.
What happened next really came to define my entire experience of medical trauma. I was given what I now know is a much too aggressive tapering regimen.
Yeah. Last few hours before here recently. I just ended it not long ago. I've been going back and forth with the recent provider that I had saying, yeah, I finally got the referral that I've been telling you I hadn't got now for what, going on 2 months, and it was 4 hours away. Obviously, it's not gonna do. So then they gave me a name of some place in a different state. And I said, seriously? I was like, I specifically asked because these are not too far, and but like, I'm like, if you're not gonna give me a referral, and obviously, no, I'm not. I didn't let them know that I got because technically, I was supposed to be tapering myself off and been fine. Um, I'm not fine. I have had to start taking uh, Ativan and a half, and I've started adding an extra piece besides the one of the Suboxone because I started having withdrawal symptoms. I've been having withdrawal symptoms from the antidepressant, and they're getting stronger by the day. So I put a pause on the taper on that until I get to that clinic. But in the meantime, yeah, I was supposed to get a referral from a doctor, and I just want to let them know how shitty they did me, I mean, because she looked at me with a straight face, said, "Oh yeah, this will be plenty enough to taper yourself now." And I believed it, and the fucking the people that harassed me, the workers, even they said that, of course they were acting like I made and lied about it. I did not. That's verbatim what they told me. And just like this guy is way too an aggressive taper regimen. That's what I was told on the phone, at least.
According to which I divided my medication into 4 doses, dropping 1 each week over the course of the month. The result is that I was launched into acute opioid withdrawal. The result, put another way, was hell. The early stages of withdrawal feel a lot like a bad case of the flu. I became nauseated, lost my appetite, I ached everywhere, had increased pain in my rather mangled foot. I developed trouble sleeping due to a general feeling of restlessness.
And some people's withdrawals can be different. Like, I don't get nauseous, but I have the other issue. I don't really get insomnia. My sleep schedule gets thrown out of whack. I can get tired all of a sudden, and then again, it feels like almost like I got a second wind, because I've been up forever.
At the time, I thought this was all pretty miserable, but that's because I didn't know what was coming. At the beginning of week 2, my life got much worse. As the symptoms dialed up in intensity, my internal thermostat seemed to go haywire.
Yeah.
I would sweat profusely, almost constantly, and yet if I managed to get myself out into the hot August sun, I might look down and find myself covered in goosebumps.
Yep.
The restlessness that had made sleep difficult during that first week now turned into what I came to think of as the withdrawal feeling. It was a deep sense of jitters that would keep me twitching, made sleep nearly impossible. But perhaps the most disturbing was the crying. I would find myself with tears coming on for seemingly no reason and with no warning. At the time, they felt like a neural misfire, similar to the goosebumps. Sadia became concerned, and she called the prescribing doctor, who very helpfully advised lots of fluids for the nausea. When she pushed him and said, he's really quite badly off, the doctor responded, well, if it's that bad, he can just go back to his previous dose for a little while. And then what? I wondered. Try again later, he responded. Now, there was no way that I was going to go back on my previous dose unless I had a better plan for making it through the withdrawal next time. And so we stuck to writing it out, and we dropped another dose. At the beginning of week 3, my world got very dark. I basically stopped eating, and I barely slept at all, thanks to the jitters that would keep me writhing all night. The worst was the depression. The tears that had felt like a misfire before now felt meaningful. Several times a day, I would get that welling in my chest where you know the tears are coming, but I couldn't stop them. And with them came desperation and hopelessness. I began to believe that I would never recover either from the accident or from the withdrawal. Sadia got back on the phone with the prescriber, and this time he recommended that we contact our pain management team from the last hospitalization. That sounded like a great idea, so we did that immediately, and we're shocked when nobody would speak with us. The receptionist who answered the phone advised us that the pain management team provides an inpatient service. Although they prescribe opioids to get pain under control, they do not oversee tapering and withdrawal. Furious,
That shit
we called the
needs to
prescriber
change.
back and begged him for anything
That shit needs to
anything
change.
that could help me. But instead, he apologized, saying that he was out of his depth. Look, he told us, my initial advice to you was clearly bad, so my official recommendation is that Travis go back on the medication until he can find someone more competent to wean him off. Of course I wanted to go back on the medication. I was in agony. But I believed that if I saved myself from the withdrawal with the drugs, that I would never be free of them. And so we buckled ourselves in, and I dropped the last dose. As my brain experienced life without prescription opioids for the first time in months, I thought I would die. I assumed I would die. I'm sorry. Because if the symptoms didn't kill me outright, I'd kill myself. And I know that sounds dramatic, because to me, standing up here years later, whole and healthy, to me it sounds dramatic. But I believed it to my core, because I no longer had any hope that I would be normal again. The insomnia became unbearable, and after 2 days with virtually no sleep, I spent a whole night on the floor of our basement bathroom. I alternated between cooling my feverish head against the ceramic tiles and trying violently to throw up, despite not having eaten anything in days. When Sadia found me at the end of the night, she was horrified, and we got back on the phone. We called everyone. We called surgeons and pain docs and general practitioners, anyone we could find on the internet, and not a single one of them would help me. The few that we could speak with on the phone advised us to go back on the medication. An independent pain management clinic said that they prescribe opioids, but they don't oversee tapering or withdrawal. When my desperation was clearly coming through my voice, much as it is now, the receptionist took a deep breath and said, Mr. Reeder, it sounds like perhaps what you need is a rehab facility or a methadone clinic. I didn't know any better at the time, so I took her advice. I hung up and I started calling those places, but it took me virtually no time at all to discover that many of these facilities are geared towards those battling long-term substance use disorder. In the case of opioids, this often involves precisely not weaning the patient off the medication, but transitioning them onto the safer, longer-acting opioids, methadone or buprenorphine, for maintenance treatment. In addition, everywhere I called had an extensive waiting list. I was simply not the kind of patient they were designed to see. After being turned away from a rehab facility, I finally admitted defeat. I was broken and beaten, and I couldn't do it anymore. So I told Sadia that I was going back on the medication. I would start with the lowest dose possible, and I would take only as much as I absolutely needed to escape the most crippling effects of the withdrawal. So that night she helped me up the stairs, and for the first time in weeks, I actually went to bed. And I took the little orange prescription bottle, and I set it on my nightstand, and then I didn't touch it. I fell asleep, I slept through the night, and when I woke up, the most severe symptoms had abated dramatically. I made it out. Thanks for that. That was my response too. So, I'm sorry, I have to gather myself just a little bit. I think this story is important. It's not because I think I'm special. This story is important precisely because I'm not special. Because nothing that happened to me was all that unique. My dependence on opioids was entirely predictable given the amount that I was prescribing and the duration for which I was prescribed it. Dependence is simply the brain's natural response to an opioid-rich environment. And so there was every reason to think that from the beginning, I would need a supervised, well-formed tapering plan. But our healthcare system seemingly hasn't decided who's responsible for patients like me. The prescribers saw me as a complex patient needing specialized care, probably from pain medicine. The pain docs saw their job as getting pain under control. And when I couldn't get off medication, they saw me as the purview of addiction medicine. But addiction medicine is overstressed and focused on those suffering from long-term substance use disorder. In short, I was prescribed a drug that needed long-term management, and then I wasn't given that management, and it wasn't even clear whose job such management was. This is a recipe for disaster. And any such disaster would be interesting and worth talking about, probably worth a TED Talk. But the failure of opioid tapering is of particular concern at this moment in America, because we are in the midst of an epidemic in which 33,000 people died from overdose in 2015. Nearly half of those deaths involve prescription opioids. The medical community has in fact started to react to this crisis, but much of their response has involved trying to prescribe fewer pills. And absolutely, that's going to be important. So for instance, we're now gaining evidence that American physicians often prescribe medication even when it's not necessary in the case of opioids. And even when opioids are called for, they often prescribe much more than is needed. These sorts of considerations help to explain why America, despite accounting for only 5% of the global population, consumes nearly 70% of the total global opioid supply. But focusing only on the rate of prescribing risks overlooking two crucially important points. The first is that opioids just are and will continue to be important pain therapies. As somebody who has had severe, real, long-lasting pain, I can assure you these medications can make life worth living. And second, we can still fight the epidemic while judiciously prescribing opioids to people who really need them by requiring that doctors properly manage the pills that they do prescribe. So for instance, go back to the tapering regimen that I was given. Is it reasonable to expect that any physician who prescribes opioids knows that that is too aggressive? Well, after I initially published my story in an academic journal, someone from the CDC sent me their pocket guide for tapering opioids. This is a 4-page document, most of it's pictures. In it, they teach physicians how to taper opioids in the easier cases. And one of their recommendations is that you never start at more than a 10% dose reduction per week. If my physician had given me that plan, my taper would have taken several months instead of a few weeks. I'm sure it wouldn't have been easy. It probably would have been pretty uncomfortable, but maybe it wouldn't have been hell. And that seems like the kind of information that someone who prescribes this medication ought to have. In closing, I need to say that properly managing prescribed opioids will not by itself solve the crisis. America's epidemic is far bigger than that. But when a medication is responsible for tens of thousands of deaths a year, reckless management of that medication is indefensible. Helping opioid therapy patients to get off the medication that they were prescribed may not be a complete solution to our epidemic, but it will clearly constitute progress. Thank you.
I think the hardest part about being in recovery is losing people, and we do a lot. Every week, we lose people. It's an epidemic, and we're at the front lines, and we see it every day. People relapsing, people going back to jail, people dying, talking to mothers and sisters and brothers who get to bury their loved ones.
We moved here, and the first thing I thought was, Zach's never seen this house. And I go outside, and I think Zach's never been on that diving board. And we buy a new car, and I think Zach's never been in this car. The piece of my heart will always be missing. That doesn't ever get better.
I came back from college, and I was able to obtain OxyContin on a daily basis.
So basically, that TikTok guy story, it's similar to my story. You know, I'm gonna have to get the help. I can't. I'm not gonna set myself up for failure. Death rattle. Okay. No, I have not been nodded out while watching this. The fuck are y'all talking about, dude? Just because I ain't saying nothing don't mean I'm nodded out. Uh, no, no, flush the toilet. I'm not trying to take Brooks' place on anything. Bunch of shit people talking shit. This is a lie. Oh, good. Yeah, okay. I don't care about Rob. You're only the second person just to say this, just with no reasoning at all, other than maybe the fact that I'm not talking, maybe. I'm not a little psycho freak in my community post. My community posts are explaining how I feel. You don't like my expression, bitches, get the fuck over it. I don't give a shit. I'm not here to satisfy you. I ain't here for nobody but one fucking. I came here to do content. Y'all wanted to interrupt that. I came here looking into Johnny Goble shit with Ryan. You know that. I had people like Fusion tell me how bad Johnny was. I had other people, stuff that I was watching. Uncle Will or PBR or who's the other one? Gotcha Man. You know, like I was watching all these people. Hell, Keith Frazier. I'll tell you one of the reasons why I think I couldn't remember this till recently, but there was something that Goble had said concerning Keith or what have you, and it was during that whole shit going on with them. And I had seen him commented, and I got it screenshot, and because he had asked for it, and I was just at that point in the habit of screenshotting with being on YouTube and seeing what I'd seen people do. So I gave it to him, and I think I don't know. I wonder if dude just done that to see if I'd give it to him to tell Gobble, or he really hated Gobble. I don't know, because I never did hear any more about them. Yeah, you gotta wonder. Was that whole thing part of just part of the grander scheme to get attention? Some people have said. I don't know. All right, I'm not a really conspiracy-minded thinker, nor do I mean. You're talking about a lot of different variables. My head has been hurting so bad. And, these people that justify the shit they do tried to say for the longest it's because of my meds I'm taking. In fact, I'm stubbornly stuck with. Okay, so here I am, lowered on them, trying to do a self taper. And have I got any encouragement or anything? No. I've been told to OD, been told to suck start a fucking pistol. I've been told to suffer, you know. This is kind of my first time. Um, Today was trying to play this game. I kept noticing these symptoms, so I typed out a lot of stuff explaining things and maybe going over a little too much detail, scattered somewhat on my community post. But you know, you want to call them psycho, whatever, that's fine. Unnamed person. I can go with just calling you, how about the coward that you are? Yeah, how about that? Fucking more than likely, probably Kyle. He loves coming in under alts. He don't ever love to come in because he knows that he can't come in on his regular account because it's him. He knows people know it's him. So he'll come in under these alts where he has a presumed, you know, benefit of the doubt or denial. And he knows full well, I can tell by how he's talked. I know how he types. I know what his style is, what he likes to go for or talk about. And he's just, you know, just the same thing over and over.
Rapper Tory Lanez has been sentenced to 10 years for shooting hip-hop star Megan Thee Stallion. Lanez, whose legal name is Daystar Peterson, was found guilty of 3 felonies in December and has been jailed since. Megan Thee Stallion testified that Lanez fired at her feet in 2020 as she walked away from an SUV they'd been riding in. Los Angeles prosecutors asked the judge to sentence Lanez to 13 years.
Oh, damn. That's crazy. I wonder what made him do that for.
And let's bring in our panel, NBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent Kendall Lanian.
Oh, God.
I'm Vinny Politan. Great to have you with us here this hour for closing arguments. A big hour ahead. We're going to talk about an array of cases. And it all begins with a little girl named Harmony. Harmony Montgomery. You remember her? 5 years old. There she is with Minnie and her glasses. There's baby. That was her mom got us these pictures. We'd been looking for these pictures. Then we had her mom on, and finally I got to see much more of what she looked like in life. 5 years she disappeared. At 5 years old, for 2 years, she was gone. No one reported her missing until her mom finally did. Her mom was fighting some addiction problems, was estranged from the father. They weren't together. He was in another state. He's now been charged with the murder. His name is Adam Montgomery. So he's been charged with the murder of Harmony, 5-year-old daughter, right? She hasn't been found. Body has not been recovered. It's incredibly tragic. Now, Adam Montgomery is a bit of a career criminal. The local cops, they all know who he is, arrest him all the time. A lot of drugs in his life, selling, using, all of that. Also had some weapons charges that he was convicted of. You saw it right here on Court TV. Well, today was his sentencing. And while he's being sentenced for the weapons charges, we know every time we see him or think about him, we're thinking about Harmony, and we're thinking about that case and the murder of that little girl. Well, today, Adam Montgomery mentioned Harmony and his upcoming trial in the statement during today's sentencing. This is all courtesy of WMUR. We have the footage. Let's take a look.
So I understand that I was found guilty by a jury, and I'm not here to dispute that at all. The only consideration that I ask you this morning is for you not to consider anything as it relates to the case regarding my daughter Harmony. I did not kill my daughter Harmony, and I look forward to my upcoming trial to refute those offensive claims.
Okay. Let's just slow the roll there, Adam, for a second, okay? Don't bring up Harmony in the sentencing, right? Well, why not? You were her father, and at a minimum, If we don't believe that you're the murderer, at a minimum, she's gone for 2 years and you did nothing to look for her. You wouldn't answer any questions to police when they finally found out she was missing and wanted to help find her. You wouldn't help. You didn't tell anyone she was gone. You didn't report her missing. So pretty much is fair game about your character. Anyhow, so Adam Montgomery, weapons charges, sentencing, armed career criminal. That was the big one, right? Rifle and a shotgun. He's a career criminal. That's who the guy is. Somehow, some way, a judge gave custody of Harmony to a literal career criminal, but that's another story for another day. Receiving stolen property, theft by unauthorized taking or transfer. He was given 15 to 30 years on each of the armed criminal charges. He was given an additional 7.5 to 15 years for the theft charges, bringing his total anywhere between 32.5 to 75 years in prison, pending good behavior. He'll be an old man when he gets out on these charges. But let's not forget, he's still facing more charges, the more significant ones, the important ones. Second-degree murder, falsifying evidence, and abuse of a corpse. Those are his pending charges. Now, for those of you who don't know the details of what is alleged here, Chanley Painter, Court TV legal correspondent, went through the affidavit and has more for us tonight.
Kayla stated that on the day the Chrysler Sebring broke down, known to be December 7th, 2019, as discussed in further detail below, Adam Montgomery struck Harmony, which caused her death. Kayla stated that while living in the vehicle together, Adam was extremely upset that 5-year-old Harmony was not saying when she needed to go to the bathroom and was having accidents in the car. Kayla stated that after each accident, Adam would get upset and would strike Harmony in the face and head.
What a fucking monster. I can't, no. He deserves to burn. So I just can't.
All right. I guess we're doing this.
What?
The morals of Gotcha Man.
We're doing this.
The morals of Gotcha Man.
Yes, the morals of Gotcha Man as we speak.
Save the baby whales. Very noble. What a hell of a nice guy.
Yeah. Not sure what you're talking about, but I'll take the credit for that. Hello, Crack Squad.
Huh.
Crack Squad. Hello. Hello. I dropped my car off to get the oil tank. Hold on a minute. Crack Squad. Save the whale. What are you gonna be done? Are you gonna be done soon with? All right, have a seat.
Huh.
Oh, that's great for business. Fuck your oil. I'm making a video about the Gotcha Man.
Huh.
I 100% am trying to save baby orca. What'd you say? Baby whales or baby dolphins? I'm trying to save any aquatic wildlife. Any. What the fuck is your point? What are you trying to say?
To save those baby whales. But then the next day,
Oh, he's got another paper. Pro-choice. I think the one pro bled through, so it's just one pro-choice. Still don't get it.
He's headed to a pro-choice rally.
I know there's a point in here somewhere. There has to be. For humanity's sake, there has to be a point in here somewhere. And before we get any further into blibber blabber, look, you guys may have seen the video I shared earlier, and I wanted to do this, man. You should have never trusted me. Again, Gobble. Why would you trust me again? I know, you wouldn't think a guy would fall for it twice. I know you wouldn't think a guy would fall for it again, but here's our conversation from tonight.
Hey, I wanted you to put that video out a little bit sooner, but it still worked, and it's going to do what we wanted it to do. It's going to work like a charm, man. They're going to be all over me. They're attacking you now. Oh, yeah. It worked just like we talked about. Comments are already coming in about it, stirring it up. We're doing a skit.
Say 6:30 p.m., y'all. It's 7:30 right now.
That's good. That's what I'm doing. I'm sitting here chilling. Hey, it really gets them worked up that Ryan is saying that this lawsuit ain't real. Oh, yeah, Ryan's saying he ain't being sued, man. He's being sued. It's fucking... Right? I mean, these people are brainless, man. One thing they don't realize, I don't think any of them, is that Patty is lying through her. Patty's lying. Yep, 100%. But anyway, good skit, man. And I might be down south later on at the end of this month, and I'll take it to Burger King again, man. For real.
Anyway, don't fall for the skit, y'all. But back to
What?
Orca Way.
Like any of them. That's good. Work like a charm, man.
Conversation from tonight. A guy would fall again, Gobble. Why would you trust me again? I know you wouldn't think a guy me again. You should have never trusted. You guys may have seen the video I shared earlier, and I wanted to do this, man. You should have never trusted me again, Gobble. Why would you trust me again? I know you wouldn't think a guy would fall for it twice. I know you wouldn't think a guy would fall for it again, but here's our conversation from tonight.
Hey, I wanted you to put that video out a little bit sooner, but it still worked, and it's going to do what we wanted it to do. It's going to work like a charm, man. They're going to be all over me. They're attacking you now. Oh, yeah. It worked just like we talked about. Comments are already coming in about it, stirring it up. We're doing a skit.
Say 6:30 p.m., y'all. It's 7:30 right now.
That's good. That's what I'm doing. I'm sitting here chilling. Hey, and it really gets them worked up that Ryan is saying that this lawsuit ain't real. Oh, yeah, Ryan's saying he ain't being sued, man. He's being sued. It's fucking... Right? I mean, these people are brainless, man. One thing they don't realize, I don't think any of them, is that Patty is lying through her. Patty's lying. Yep, 100%. But anyway, good skit, man.
What skit?
I might be down south later on at the end of this month, and I'll take it to Burger King again, man. For real.
What?
Anyway, all for the skit, y'all. But back to orca whales and abortion. What the fuck are you talking about?
So, I'm going to save the baby whales while I ensure people are allowed to murder human babies.
So I'm going to save baby whales and ensure that people murder human babies. what was that? Shit, I can't. There's this thing that you've been talking about it a lot too. There's a lot of people. Shit, what is that? Slander? No. Is that where people say stuff that's not true about you? Okay, I get it. You a pro-choice rally. Pro-choice. I'm gonna be honest. I still don't fucking get it.
That's the moral depth of Gotcha Man. We call that hypocrisy.
What I think you're trying to do is, like, in your Alzheimer's fucking liver spotted head ass brain, trying to come up with some sort of a comeback way to be relevant and to somehow get under my skin. But the problem is I'm not so wrapped up in politics as you are. So I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. But if your goal and what you're trying to do is try to prove some hypocrisy case, right, and try to say that I'm a hypocrite in some way, that would be a bad idea, dude. Because it's a lot easier to explain that with you, and I don't have to talk about whales and abortion. With you, all I have to do is point out the very thing that you complain about and cry about every day on your YouTube channel about what Crack Squad is doing. They're going outside of YouTube and into personal life. I can prove with hundreds of clips that that's exactly what you do, right? You're doing vehicle searches to find out people's address and phone numbers, and you're fucking saying that people are watching them if they drive with expired tags. And, you know, even the fucking shit, even when they do it to you, supposedly, when you claim that they put my personal information out there, they put my personal family information out there, you're the fucking idiot that done that. You're the fucking dumbass. And I don't know if it's Alzheimer's and you forget that this is the fucking internet you're on. I don't know where you think you are, the fucking AARP office, but you're on the internet, pal. And when you take your certificate for to be a certified mechanic, you're like, ugh, I'm a certified mechanic. Tim Tonk, here's my address and everything about me. And then a month later, you're on the internet. Crack Squad has put out my personal employment, where I used to work, what I used to do for a living. It's unacceptable. Anyway, my wife's name is Candy. C-A-N-D-I. Crack Squad put out my wife's name. Telling you folks, slanderous. So I don't know. Is that the point you're trying to make with this well and abortion thing? Or did I just get drunk and do a live that I don't remember and rambled on about whales and abortion? I think it's the former, not the latter. Anyway, let's move on.
See, that's why, Gotcha Man, that's why people laugh at Democrats. For that very reason. Stupid stuff like save the baby whales, pro-choice. You realize it's a hypocrisy.
So you're going to put all your personal information out there and then turn around and cry when people repeat it. Folks, I feel sorry for you.
I feel sorry for you, kind dude. I really do. I hope you got enough subscribers to monetize yourself now. Okay, so now you got to watch what comes out of your mouth, or it won't be able to be monetized.
I appreciate that. And yeah, I am monetized. As a matter of fact, I don't need to watch what I say because I'm super monetized. I make thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars right here on this YouTube channel. I can prove it too. All day long. No, actually, I'm not monetized at all. I don't make any money on this. I just do it for fun. I make a couple $100. What's your point? And for you, I say, just like the Finding Nemo, keep on swimming. Just keep on collecting that evidence.
Collecting more evidence.
Okay? I'm like a bird, I'm fucking gay.
Oh my God.
On December 6th, 2014, at 8:07 p.m., LaTroy Rudd and Glenn Williams place a call to the Panola County Sheriff's Office to report a vehicle engulfed in flames just off the side of Heron Road in Cortland, Mississippi. 2 minutes later, at 8:09 p.m., firefighters and emergency medical services arrive on the scene.
On December the 6th of 2014, you responded to a car fire.
Yes, sir. When I arrived, I pulled on up to where the car was on fire, and
What did you see?
I saw Jessica standing in the road.
What was this person wearing?
When I seen her, she had nothing on but her pants. I got out and I got a blanket, and she had her arms out, was coming towards me, saying, "Help me, help me, help me."
Nicole, I want you to describe for this jury, what did she look like? What was the condition of Jessica Chambers?
Her hair was fried out like she'd stuck it in a light socket. And she had black all over her face. Her body was severely burned. And I wrapped the blanket around her to conceal her. She reached out for my hand. I held on to her hand, and her mouth, inside her mouth was just charred black. And when I asked her name, she said Jessica Chambers, and she was not recognizable to me. I know what Jessica Chambers looked like. Knowing this is Cortland, I said, "This is Jessica Chambers, not Chambers."
In all your years of being a firefighter, have you ever seen anything like this?
No, sir. I hope I never see anything like it again.
Carl, let me ask you one final question. As of today, are you currently on the Cortland Fire Department?
Sir, I'm not.
Your Honor, I have no further questions. I would ask that he be finally excused.
The man you were just listening to is Cole Haley. As alluded to during his testimony, Cole was just one of the firefighters that responded to the call on the evening of December 6th. As they arrived on the scene, they came upon what has been described as a zombie-like version of a burned woman walking away from her burning car. Although this woman was still able to walk and even attempt to speak, it was very apparent that her life was at risk as she was visibly burned from head to toe, blinded by the fire, and her breathing was extremely labored. As these first responders did their absolute best to provide life-saving aid to the victim, they asked her, "Who did this to you?" She then attempted to respond through her very debilitating injuries, and all of the responders believed they heard her say, "It was Eric." 19-year-old Jessica Chambers was then transported by helicopter to the Memphis Hospital Burn Unit, where she received emergency medical treatment. It was found that Jessica had obtained burns to over 93% of her body, and doctors quickly determined that life-saving efforts would not be effective. On December 7th at 2:36 a.m., Jessica Chambers took her last breath while holding her mother's hand. A special investigations task force was assembled over the 48 hours that followed, and the hunt for the killer began. While some of the members of this team worked to gather and examine evidence, others focused their efforts on speaking to anybody with the name Eric or Derek that was known to be in the area on the night of December 6th. Strangely, everybody with the name Eric or Derek was quickly cleared after not only providing alibis, which were easily corroborated, but also by allowing investigators to search through their location history using their cell phone data. One man named Derek Turner, who was known to hang out in the same social circle as Jessica, was quickly arrested and questioned. However, this early on in the investigation, police had not yet released to the public that Jessica had named her attacker on the scene.
What did they tell you? They were investigating the death of Jessica Chambers?
Yes, ma'am.
I tracked down this man, 31-year-old Derek Turner, just hours after he was released from jail Wednesday, where he was questioned about Jessica Chambers.
I was just called in to, for an interview about a situation I didn't know nothing about.
Turner said he knew Chambers.
But I don't just know her like that because I'm way older than her. So I seen her around at the stores and everything, but I don't just know her like that.
What Turner did know.
The times that I was around her, she carried herself. She was a good girl. She was a sweet girl. So that's why I'm messed up about it. Whatever happened to her, I hate it happen.
Turner, taken into custody Monday, still has no idea what led investigators to him.
They didn't tell me what reason why they had me, who said what or what. So, I don't know how my name even came up in.
After days behind bars?
No, they didn't have nothing, to hold me for, so they had to let me go.
Investigators worked around the clock as they eliminated potential suspects in the small town of Cortland, which only has a population of around 500 people. Since a vast majority of evidence
I had to fix the microphone. I said, that's the population my church town has, 500.
would have been burned in the fire, investigators only had a handful of leads to follow in search of the killer, and with the name Eric taking them nowhere, they decided to make a plea to the public for assistance.
There's not a lot of street talk out there about who may or may not have done this, so it's making our job a little bit more difficult, and that's why we're appealing to the public. I know that Crime Stoppers does have a reward for this. So anybody with information, we're asking you to please come forward. The Cortland community is a small community. So we feel like somebody out there knows something or has heard something that just has not come forward yet. And we're asking the community to help us with this.
The case immediately went viral due to its shocking and dramatic nature, appearing on several news stations and even making it to the front of People magazine. With the hopes of gathering more information, Jessica's sister also created a Facebook page titled Justice for Jessica. This page received over 150,000 followers in the first 24 hours. And as with most online discussion groups, the rumor mill kicked into overdrive. Some people insisted that this wasn't a murder at all. Instead, it was actually a mechanical car fire. Some insisted that it was her father, Ben, as Ben has openly stated that he does not support interracial relationships. Meanwhile, Jessica took part in several herself. Some believed that it was a drug or gang-related assassination, while others even went as far as working together to prove that it was one of her ex-boyfriends, referring to them by name and even sending these men harmful or threatening messages. All of these rumors were proven to be just that. Rumors. The way the vehicle was burned indicated that the fire had been started from the driver's seat, with gasoline used as an accelerant. Jessica's father, Ben, was actually a mechanic that worked for the local police and had a confirmed alibi at the time of the murder. Any suspicions of gang or drug relation seemed to be disproven. Although Jessica had a few years living a dangerous lifestyle, between 15 and 18 years old, many people have stated that she was steering clear of these types of situations over the year leading up to her death. And the two ex-boyfriends that were garnering suspicion online had already been interviewed and eliminated as suspects. Investigators had also already spoke with a man named Quentin Tellis that Jessica had been texting and calling over the 17 days leading up to her murder and throughout the day of her murder. Quentin was also ruled out. Throughout the first month following Jessica's death, investigators managed to question over 100 people and create a solid timeline of Jessica's day. They also heavily examined a handful of key pieces of evidence. At the scene of the crime, police found Jessica's car and remaining clothing to have been covered in gasoline. They then found her keys about a quarter-mile down the road, thrown into the trees. They found that at 4:15 p.m., just 4 hours before EMS arrived on the scene, that Jessica had spoken to her mother on the phone, stating that she would be home soon. Her mother claimed that this phone call was very strange because it was eerily quiet. They also found text messages on Jessica's phone between Jessica and the man previously mentioned, named Quentin Tellis. And finally, they uncovered surveillance footage from the only gas station/convenience store located in the small town of Cortland. This footage is where investigators decided to direct their focus. This footage captured Jessica at 5:24 p.m., just over 2 hours before the fire. At first glance, this footage didn't appear to provide much in terms of potential suspects. However, while researching each of the people seen on the recording, investigators felt that they needed to speak with one man in particular, George Mister, aka Boone. Boone had a criminal history of aggravated assault, violence towards women, and drug trafficking, and he had just recently been released from prison, less than a year from the date of the fire. The police then apprehend Boone at the same gas station. He was surrounded and arrested at gunpoint.
George Mister and Rachel Tudor say they're the latest to be questioned in Jessica Chambers' murder.
I took a lie detector test. I took a swab test.
Investigators wouldn't confirm the pair was questioned, but a jail log shows Mister's name on the date in question. Tudor isn't listed, but I did see her in the jail parking lot.
They questioned me about a text message that I sent Jessica 2 days before she died. And I guess that was why they may have thought something. I don't know.
These two say they both know Jessica. How'd you know Jessica?
She's a good friend.
But tell me they have no idea how she was set on fire and found near her burning car in Cortland.
It's saying that
It was a lover's quarrel.
it was a lover's core, you know, a lover's core. That's they questioning about.
District Attorney John Champion estimates around 100 people have been questioned.
I knew Jessica pretty well, and we hung out, and we had our differences, ups and downs, but, you know, none of us would really ever imagine doing something like that to her.
We don't know. You know, don't know what the problem was that got her killed.
When speaking with the authorities, Boone seemed to have an alibi. However, he also had some new information for the investigators. Apparently, Boone had seen Jessica around 11 a.m. on December 6th. He stated that Jessica was actually a drug addict that would frequently be around Boone and his friends, as, in his words, she was looking for love and somebody to care for her because her daddy was mean and racist. He stated that that morning she had visited him with a handful of crystal meth, asking for him to trade it for some cocaine. Boone said that he then turned her down and watched her leave and didn't hear from her again. since the investigators were relatively empty-handed in terms of evidence against Boone. Boone was then released from custody. As the months went on, the reward increased incrementally. Unfortunately, investigators found themselves at a standstill until they made another discovery within the gas station footage. That discovery was Jessica's vehicle pulling into a driveway across the street from the store. This was the driveway of Quentin Tellis. Since Quentin had already been spoken to and ruled out, investigators had slowed down any further attempts to connect him with the murder. However, this finding seemed to contradict a statement that he had made during their conversations. Investigators decided to obtain a warrant to review Quentin's cell phone location history. This showed that Quentin's cell phone was pinging off the exact same towers as Jessica's throughout the hours leading up to and during the burning. Jessica's keys were then immediately tested for Quentin's DNA, which came back positive. And finally, about 14 months after Jessica's death, Quentin Ellis was charged with capital murder.
A Cortland man has been charged with capital murder in the death of Jessica Chambers.
As we reported, Chambers was found burned alive in the rural Mississippi town in December of 2014. Until now, there had been no suspects named. WJTV's Terrence Friday spent the day in Panola County where the announcement was made.
At the press conference today, investigators revealed that this wall was filled with the names and photos of people believed to have been responsible for the death of Jessica Chambers. After more than a year, they narrowed it down to Quentin Tellis. Tellis was arrested in August of 2015 after he used a stolen credit card that belonged to a Chinese exchange student that was killed in Louisiana. Now he's been named the primary suspect in the death of Jessica Chambers as well. A lot of the details that a lot of people want to know are being withheld until that information is presented to the jury. We now know at this point that the suspect is believed to have acted alone, and investigators say they're confident that he's the right person.
We do not anticipate at this point there being any other charges against any other individuals. We do feel like at this point that he acted alone in this case, and that we do not at this point. I'm never going to be 100% about anything. You never know in this world, but I'm fairly, very, very confident that we will not have any other charges against any other suspect.
As mentioned in that news segment, Quentin had moved to a neighboring county, where he was eventually charged for using a debit card that belonged to a foreign exchange student named Mandy, who had been found dead in her apartment on August 8, 2015. In the weeks leading up to Mandy's death, several tenants stated that they witnessed Quentin and Mandy talking on the stairs outside. Cell phone data also placed Quentin within 200 feet of Mandy's apartment the night before she was discovered. Since there was no DNA or physical evidence tying Quentin to Mandy's murder, homicide charges had not yet been placed. However, Quentin was still facing charges for using the debit card of a murder victim. This meant that Quentin was already behind bars when officers closed in on him. During the months between November and February, Quentin was interviewed 3 separate times. The first interview took place on November 2nd, 2015.
How far did you go to school? 8th and 9th grade. What year did you go to jail? I think I went to jail in 2007. What's the initial charge? Third of her.
Let's talk about your relationship with Jessica. How'd y'all meet?
We met at the store right across from my mom's house. It's really like just exchanged numbers. And then, like, I'll say, next day we would start talking.
How often did y'all see each other?
I see her like all the time.
Now, were y'all in a physical relationship too?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you and her have sex?
Yeah, we had sex.
Okay. Would you guys pretty often? Or?
One time.
How soon was that after y'all met?
I don't even think it was 2 weeks later.
2 weeks later. And where did that occur?
It was in her car.
Her car. You had a little bitty car.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't with her that night.
Really? I was. Being honest with you about that? You promised to God on that? You promised on your mama's right hand to your mama's right hand. I wasn't with her that night. Think back, did you see anybody else? Did you talk to anybody on the phone?
I probably, I can't remember if I talked to Jessica that morning. I want to say I did. So this, I know, I don't want to lie to you.
All right, so she departs, she leaves M&M. You call her or text her soon after that?
I can't remember, probably.
I did, so I told her I came in. She asked you for money to get her something to eat. So you just went over there and gave her some money? Okay. You get in the car with her? Jessica, you drive with her all that night? Did she come in by your house? Did you see her anymore that night after you got off? No, sir.
During his first interview, Quinton remained buckled down and unfazed by the questioning. He appeared to reply honestly to simple probing questions like how they met and where they met, but refused to admit to spending any time with Jessica that evening. However, during the second interview, investigators cornered Quinton with some of the evidence they had against him. This time, Quinton's story began to change.
Now, just for reference, December 6th, 5 o'clock, when it's dark outside, okay? It's 5:24, okay? 5:24, she pulls up to the station. All right? This is 5:29. You see her phone up there? Guess who she's calling right now? You. She's calling you. And you can argue that all you want, but I'm telling you, from that point on, that evening, y'all's phones are going to be together. Okay? For the next long time, your phone and her phone are in the exact same location. That's where your phone is. I promise. And what is it? You were right there with Jessica. It was the same night, because I remember now. I'm going to make sure I get it right. It was that night. I did meet her in that parking lot, right there by Taco Bell. She had $10 and a quarter stack of weed from me. You wearing out those keys or that keychain? Those are keys to her car. Your DNA is on those keys. No. I mean, I'm telling you the God's truth. That's the honest truth. Your DNA is on the keys. Well, why? That's what we're telling you. That's why we're being honest with you about everything and following the evidence. I mean, I drove a car before. How long before she died you think you drove that car? A long time ago, I caught it and we went to the liquor store. Was that the week she died, or how long before she died? I don't know. Okay. Listen to me, buddy. You made a mistake. But when a man mans up and says, I'm messed up and I am sorry. Because you can have one or two things. A man can have mercy, or a man can have justice. Give me time to tell the truth. The evidence that we've amassed during the course of this case, I feel extremely good about. And the decisions that you make from here on forward have the potential to affect the rest of your life. I have no reason to lie to you, though, for God, honest truth. I'll tell the truth. You'd rather go to court. You'd rather go to court with a jury side. I told the truth. It ain't even on my heart to kill nobody. When they try you for killing Jessica Chambers, the death penalty is going to be on the tape. You can kill Jessica. I'm just telling you how it is, Quinn.
Regardless of Quinton's claims of innocence, the evidence told a story of guilt all on its own. It wasn't until the end of his third interview that investigators officially filed the charges for capital murder against Quinton. They gave him a moment to speak with his mother.
I ain't doing it. I drove a car to the liquor store one time. That's it. That was me killing him, no. Turn your wrist on.
Quinton Tellis was then handcuffed and escorted back to his cell, where he remained throughout the course of his court proceedings. His trial began in October of 2017. Quinton Tellis pleaded not guilty.
My name is John Champion, and I'm the district attorney for Panola County, where we are now, DeSoto County, Tate County, Yallowbush County, and Tallahatchie County, just everything up and down, basically down I-55. This is the part of the
DeSoto County is where I stayed and lived a little bit. My mom did. This is where she where my so-called stepdad was from. Well, to be clear, he was from a place called Hernando, but yeah, it was all in DeSoto County. Ow.
Trial that we call opening statements, which is where I intend over the next little while to lay out for you what this case is going to be about and what we expect us to show in this case. I want to start by telling you that on December the 6th of 2014, Jessica Chambers was a beautiful, blonde-haired 19-year-old. About 2 weeks prior to December the 6th of 2014, Jessica met a man that would eventually end her life. She met a man that would change the course of her family, that would change the course of the rest of the life of her family and her friends and everyone that knew her. And that man is Quentin Tellis.
District Attorney John Champion presented to the jury that Quentin and Quentin alone murdered Jessica. He stated that the two only recently became friends. However, Quentin quickly became overwhelmingly sexual towards Jessica. It was documented through a plethora of text conversations where Jessica would constantly reject him. The prosecution put forward that on the night of the murder, Quentin had actually assaulted Jessica in her vehicle, where she possibly lost consciousness. A panicked Quentin, who believed that he may have accidentally just murdered Jessica, then decided to burn her body and the vehicle as a way to dispose of the evidence. The result was Jessica waking up on fire and then experiencing those horrific final moments as described by Cole Haley at the beginning of this video. The defense then gave their opening statement, and unsurprisingly, they chose to build their entire case on top of 3 little words. It was Eric.
The evidence will show that this indeed was a horrible crime, a terrible thing that happened to Jessica Chambers that day. Looks like it's right at about 3 years ago, December. And what happened was that Miss Chambers actually came walking down Heron Road, where everything occurred that day. She was alert. She was able to speak. And what happened is that she encountered one of the first volunteer firefighters who was dispatched that day. There were at least 8 responders who spoke to her. And the evidence will show that Jessica Chambers repeatedly talked to 8 different people, if not more. They asked what her name was. Jessica, she said. They asked, who did this to you? And what she did was she told them who did this to her. Many of the first responders completed reports. And what they put in their reports, you'll find that it's in quotes, where she said, Eric set me on fire. In quotations. She didn't say any other name. She didn't mention any other person. What she said was that Eric did this to me. His name is Quentin Tellis. She did not say that day. This case is full of reasonable doubt. And the point is that Ms. Chambers did not say Quentin set her on fire. She just did not say that. And we cannot ignore that. And for this reason, we will ask that you find Quentin Tellis not guilty as a result. Thank you.
Although somewhat bleak and rather predictable, the question was whether or not this defense would be effective with the jury. The prosecution would present the following points as evidence of Quentin's guilt. Video footage and cell phone data that linked both Jessica and Quentin together throughout the day and the evening when she was killed. Quentin's DNA being found on Jessica's keys, which were located a quarter mile from the crime scene. A series of messages between Quentin and Jessica, which exemplified Quentin's constant sexual interest, while Jessica would constantly reject him, and video footage from different times throughout the day that would show that Quentin changed his clothes 3 different times. 2 of those times happened following the murder. The defense would argue that every piece of evidence that linked the two together at the time of the fire was circumstantial. The gas station footage took place hours before the fire, and the cell phone data could not be fully trusted, as Quentin's sister lived about a mile away from the crime scene, and it was possible that Quentin visiting her could have corrupted the accuracy. They would argue that the keys only contained Quentin's DNA because he had driven the two to the liquor store within the week prior to the fire. They would state that the sexual messages were always playful in nature, and there was never any negative sexual encounters that should change the way they are perceived. The clothing changes were a tricky one, but the defense seemed to argue that each change was motivated by normal factors like insecurity or dirt. Anyways, throughout the trial, many witnesses and experts took the stand, but the most important testimonies came from the medical examiners, who went on to claim that Jessica's mental state, as well as her internal injuries, would have made it nearly impossible for her to speak coherently.
Can you describe this picture for the jury and what you're seeing?
This is your larynx that's usually a tube. So it goes down through our throat into our lungs and then starts to branch out left and right. And what you're seeing from your cords down is the soot that is in here that would have been the carbon products that she was breathing in during the fire, which would mean to me it's in an enclosed space.
Would that be consistent with a car?
Yes, sir.
Could these chemicals that you breathe in affect Ms. Chambers' mindset at all?
Well, you know, sure. I mean, carboxyhemoglobin itself builds up the carbon monoxide. And if you're in that type of environment for too long, the levels go up and then it affects your own mentation.
Would it be typical for a person with this degree of burns and this percentage of burns to go through shock?
Those that can live go through several phases of that psychological reaction. Number one is, will I live? Will I live with all my body parts? Will I live being able to function? Things along those lines. But from this standpoint, initially, it's, I'm going to die.
Given the injury to her lips and her mouth, is it likely that she would have severe difficulties in her speech?
Without a doubt.
Would you agree that for the most part, her condition would have worsened from when she was initially found to when she got to the burn center?
To a certain extent, yes, ma'am.
There were at least 10 to 12 other individuals who were speaking to her. That would indicate that she could speak, correct?
She could probably speak, but not enunciate well.
And so you cannot say with 100% certainty that statements that she made were not made.
I will there.
Yes, sir. I tend the witness.
The argument regarding whether or not Jessica was able to speak clearly really was the main focus for the defense, and it definitely is debatable, given that even Cole Haley also stated that Jessica even mispronounced her own name when he first arrived. Although the prosecution's case was built almost entirely on circumstantial evidence, it was still predicted to be a slam dunk victory for the district attorney. And after the closing arguments were read to end off a 6-day trial, the jury then went for deliberation before returning with their verdict.
I've been informed that the jury has reached a verdict in this case. Is that correct? Did you select a foreman? Or let's see.
Man, I wanted to sit there and I just wanted to squeeze it. I didn't, but by bumping it, the way how it got bumped at first, I think put a little pressure on it, because it did somewhat. I decided not to apply any wool I had already experienced, and I went and cleaned it up. I put 2 different types of Dawn salve, one that's natural, the other one homeopathic, on it, and I covered it with a Band-Aid. So that stuff will go in there hopefully and draw that stuff out. Man, it hurts. Okay, shit, it's
Mr.
sore.
Lampkin, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. I don't need to know what your verdict was, but I just need to know, did all 12 jurors agree on that verdict?
Yes, sir, we did.
All right. Would you hand the verdict, please, to the court, to the clerk, please, excuse me.
We all didn't agree on it.
Uh-oh.
Sir?
You said we all agreed on that verdict. We didn't.
All 12, the verdict has to be unanimous. So all 12 did not agree on the verdict? Is that what you're telling me, sir?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
All right. I'll ask you to step back in the jury room, please. Pass the verdict, please, to the clerk that you have in your hand.
The jury returned to deliberation, and after about an hour had passed, they told the court that they were deadlocked. This resulted in a mistrial due to a hung jury. A retrial took place in September of 2018, and yet again it was declared a mistrial.
Tried twice for the murder of Jessica Chambers, but both trials ended in a hung jury. And that was and has many wondering Quentin Tellis will be tried for a third time. Local 24 News reporter Tish Clark live in the studio now with new information from the district attorney on this very case. Tish.
Hi, Katina. Well, Quentin Tellis will go back to Monroe, Louisiana sometime this week. He'll face murder charges down there for killing a college exchange student in July 2015. Investigators say the student was tortured before she was stabbed nearly 30 times in her apartment. Tellis denies killing the student. However, he pleaded guilty to using her debit card and was sentenced to 10 years as a habitual offender. Tellis was then extradited here to Mississippi to face murder charges in the Jessica Chambers case. As for the Chambers case, District Attorney John Champion says he might take Tellis to trial a third time, but he wants to let emotions simmer down a little bit in Panola County, and he wants to talk to the Chambers family before making any decisions.
On Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022, officials
Damn.
announced that Quentin Tellis will not face trial for the August 2015 murder of the foreign exchange student named Mandy. And as of June 3rd, 2023, there has not been a date set for a third trial regarding the murder of Jessica Chambers. Quentin Tellis still remains behind bars, serving his 10-year sentence for using the debit card of a murder victim.
Something ain't right about that shit. But it's probably because, you know, the fact that she said that they can bring all the experts in there they want, you know, several of them all said that she said Eric. That's a big, you know, thing. Judge is blatantly racist in court. What?
A sentence has been vacated. Why? Because the judge said that man just looks like a criminal. I'm not kidding. Put up the picture full mass. Now, this is quite insane. In Michigan, LaRon Liggins, on the right, had his drug charges vacated last week after U.S. District Judge Stephen Murphy III on the left said, looks like a criminal during a pretrial hearing, violating the man's right to due process. That's a constitutional violation. Let me give you background on the case. According to NBC News, Liggins, was sentenced to more than 10 years in prison for 2 drug charges, was indicated by the Michigan grand jury, indicted by the Michigan grand jury in February 2018 on a charge of conspiracy to possess with the intent to distribute heroin. In 2019, a count of aiding and abetting possession with intent to distribute heroin was also added to the indictment. During Liggins' pretrial hearing on January 2020, the U.S. District Judge Stephen Murphy III became frustrated with Liggins after he changed his attorney multiple times. That's a right that you have, which continued to delay the trial. While voicing his frustrations about Liggins and the delays, the judge said he was tired of this case. What do you want me to do?
You better
This guy
make it real
looks
easy.
like a criminal to me. End quote.
Oh,
Judge
shit.
Murphy said. This is what criminals do. This isn't what innocent people do who want a fair trial, end quote. Judge,
Yeah,
let's put them back on.
only criminals get different lawyers if they don't think the
Sir,
lawyer's not good.
everybody
Come
is
on now.
actually judicially innocent
Until,
unless they are proven judicially guilty.
yeah, it should be unless, not until.
You are not the court of public opinion. You are the presiding judge over the rights of the defendant.
accused,
That is your actual job.
and to keep the
You
state in
literally
check during
decided to
prosecution.
bypass all of your years of law school,
You ain't supposed to be
attorney
biased.
training, and judicial training to say something like this on the absolute record, understanding it is completely contrary to the due process clause of the U.S. Constitution and your prime operation as a judge. How many times have you done this before? Is my question.
He's
And I'm
going
glad
in
you
on
did
her.
it this time, because at least we'll know you're not the guy who will call balls, balls, and strikes, strikes, and protect the rights of individuals who come before you. There's more. After the judge said these comments, LaRon Liggins filed a motion to have the judge recused, which Murphy denied, which was dumb as hell. Although he did apologize, once again, admitting to his remarks, explaining that he lost his head, end quote, but could still be fair, right? Even though he thinks, yeah, this guy's guilty. He can still be fair during the trial. I give Mr. Liggins the same rights and opportunities to hear to demonstrate his innocence or lack of guilt as any other litigant. And I believe that my conduct at the final pretrial conference and in today's hearing do not evidence any bias. I mean, it's laughable. You said the man's guilty in your opinion. That does not provide evidence of bias? Wow. However, a 3-judge panel, yep, they disagreed with him. The 3-judge panel from the U.S. District Court of Appeals disagreed with Murphy and their appeals opinion, arguing that the court has a duty to protect against all appearance of bias, according to the opinion. When Judge Murphy refused to recuse himself, he was violating Liggins' Fifth Amendment rights, which ensure the right of a fair trial. Since the panel of judges didn't rule on the evidentiary issues, federal prosecutors could still file for a new trial. But as of now, Ron Liggins is no more sentenced to 10 years. Well, there you have it. Sharing thoughts.
This is legal cut and dry. Appeals court made the right decision here. Well, what does a criminal look like in 2023, Dr. Ritchie, would be my question. I mean, if you just keep it on cable news, it looks more like Judge Murphy than Mr. Liggins these days. Maybe with the orange hue, spray tan, but it looks more like Judge Murphy. Okay?
Oh,
especially
shit.
given the recent behavior we have seen.
Oh, man. Oh, man. My leg hurts bad. So they use ketamine to treat depression. How much does that cost?
This is incredible. Everyone should feel what it is like to feel this connected to everyone.
You've likely heard of the drug ketamine. Originally discovered in 1962, it's used in hospital surgeries and procedures of all kinds. In the 80s and 90s, it became a very popular party drug, but today it is being used as a treatment for severe depression, anxiety, PTSD, chronic pain, and more. MedCircle producer Bridget and myself went to Beverly Hills, California to get our very first ketamine fusion treatments. It was incredibly eye-opening and insightful, and I hope you find the same insight in this documentary. If you've not subscribed to this YouTube channel, please do. It helps us spread this credentialed mental health information to those that need it. Enjoy this program, and remember, whatever you're going through, you got this.
Ketamine is a research-backed medication that's providing a fast path to relief from mental health issues for patients who just have not responded to traditional treatments. But not everyone is a candidate. Before we received our infusion, Bridget and I underwent a thorough screening process with the doctor. We also consulted with our personal psychiatrist.
Hey, doctor. Hey, Kyle. I'm Kyle. This is Callie. Hey, Callie. Hey, I'm Dr. Stoyer. I'm Bridget. Hey, Bridget. Nice to meet you as well.
It's not as one pack.
It is, yeah.
So they ask for all the normal stuff, and then they go through your mental health history, which most doctors don't ask in this much detail. And then they go through your general history as well. And then just now, you're going to take the Beck's depression inventory to see how depressed you really are. I know people who've had ketamine because they were in a hospital going into a procedure. But I don't know anyone, I didn't even know ketamine was a street drug until we started to do this story. Let's see what my anxiety score is. So I filled out the Beck depression form and calculated my score. And it's a score from 1 to more than 40. And I'm a 36, which puts me in the severe depression category, which does make sense. Then I did the Beck anxiety form, and on a scale from 0 to more than 36, I am a 26, which puts me in moderate anxiety, which is between 22 and 35. So I'm on the low end of moderate anxiety, and I'd say that's true. I most of the time not very anxious, so that seems in line with how I actually feel and view my own mental health.
My name is Dr. Michael Stoyer. I'm the founder and owner of the Pacific Ketamine Institute, PKI, here in Beverly Hills. I'm an anesthesiologist in terms of my background. I did my anesthesia residency training at Harvard, Massachusetts General Hospital back in the 80s and early 90s, and I've been in practice for approximately 32 years.
And we just did 20 minutes of paperwork between the two of us. We give it back to you guys. What are you using that paperwork for?
We want to make sure that ketamine is safe, that there aren't any so-called contraindications or aspects of your history that would preclude you from having ketamine infusion. Somebody with uncontrolled high blood pressure, somebody who's allergic to ketamine, which is very unusual, somebody who has, let's say, schizophrenia, somebody who has a problem with their liver, let's say somebody has hepatitis or liver failure, because ketamine is metabolized by the liver, it would be appropriate for something like that. Ketamine is very useful for depression and anxiety. It's also used for PTSD. It has been used for addiction disorder. It's been used very frequently for bipolar disorder. It's now being thought to be helpful for migraine and certain types of neuropathic chronic pain. We've seen tremendous benefit from people who've been very frustrated with the traditional modes of treatment for depression and mood disorders, depression, anxiety, OCD, where people have really felt stuck using SSRIs, SNRIs. What are SSRIs? Drugs like Zoloft, Prozac, etc., Lexapro. When you first start your initial ketamine infusion, what we'll do is we'll bring you back into one of our very comfortable deluxe rooms where there's a very comfortable reclining chair.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
We're going to pre-treat with a drug called Zofran, which is a very powerful anti-nausea drug.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
And are there any side effects of getting Zofran besides not feeling nauseous?
That's pretty much it. That's a nice side effect too.
And I'm getting it right now.
I'm going to give it to you in a second.
I'm not afraid of needles or blood or anything like that. I talk when I'm nervous, so.
That's okay. It's normally nervous for this.
But you know, nervous.
So you can so they've got this type, which is an infusion, and now they've got a nasal spray. I think I'm gonna ask about this for whenever I go to the clinic. I may see about getting a referral for trying this type of treatment. Because I think it's just I think I'm gonna have to end up going back on the antidepressants. So it's been, like almost 2 weeks now. and the symptoms just started off mild and they've gotten worse and worse, and they kind of plateaued, but they're still going on, and it makes me feel like my just my general sense, like not what do you call it? Oh, what would be the word? My equilibrium's off balance.
Nervousness and excitement are the same emotion. It's just on different sides of the coin, so to speak. So I think it's just excitement.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what you gotta tell yourself.
We tend to dim the lights because during ketamine infusions, patients' senses tend to be very heightened. You tend to hear sounds, noises much more intensely than if you had not been on ketamine. The same thing is true with the visual experience of ketamine. So we tend to really kind of mute the experience so that it's not overly sensory overload for you.
People are always a little nervous the first time. After that, it's like, I know what to expect.
Okay.
But this is like nothing you've ever experienced before. So
Yeah.
it's understandable that you'd be a little bit nervous about this. I would be.
Yeah. And I've never done it recreationally, so I have no idea what to expect.
Here
we go.
I've never
I feel
taken
nothing.
ketamine. I've never taken ketamine recreationally either, so I think it'd be a good treatment option.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've heard about this, but I didn't know it was mainstream now.
We are plugged in and ready to go. Can you feel it yet?
I think so.
Pretty soon it's gonna be more than I think so.
Okay.
You're just starting to get there. I'll be back in a few minutes, okay?
Okay. So what should I do right now?
Just kick back and relax.
Okay.
Even when you get the this nasal stuff, it you have to stay in the treatment place for, I believe, 2 hours. Um, it's been used for many years to treat depression. I don't know that, but it wasn't until recently that S-ketamine, a more potent version of ketamine, earned FDA approval for use as a nasal spray for those with treatment-resistant depression. Oh yeah, I would fucking qualify for that. Hello. But I guess you don't take it home with you, or I mean, I wouldn't want to. I mean, if you're gonna, if they have to administer it to you. Hmm.
Have you asked me anything?
How's it going? How does it feel?
Incredible.
What are the thoughts that are in your mind?
That we're all connected, that we're all together, that like it's just so clear, like we are all in this together.
What is this? We're all in this together. What is this?
Well, I mean, like our lives, our purpose, our soul. We're all, it's crazy. It's how we're all together.
Yeah.
I can tell that I'm very
Stone. Seems
everyone.
The reaction he's having is almost taken to like how some people act on the television shows when they smoke. You know, like normally people smoke don't act like that, but when you're watching TV and people get high or something, like they got to be laughing, saying a bunch of dumb shit, or whatever.
Feel what it is like to feel this connected to everyone.
It's incredible.
On a science level or neurological level, what's going on during treatment?
Neurotransmitter amino acids, one of the blocks of protein, but
Yeah.
also is involved in the signal processing of brain chemistry. And it tends to open up different foci in the brain, different areas that help make you feel much better in terms of your mood.
How you doing, Kyle?
This is incredible. Yeah. This is amazing. I wish people could hear what I'm hearing right now. You know?
What does it sound like?
I just I feel really like grounded. I wanna go back where I like got it.
Do you already feel a lot more normal?
No, I can still feel the effects of it right now. That was incredible.
How's your mood right now?
It's pretty good. Yeah, I feel
Pretty usual. Let's say a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most, just the best you could ever imagine feeling. Completely euphoric. Where would you say you are now? On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you say you were before?
before I was probably at 5. I was now at 8 or 9.
Beautiful. That's awesome.
Yeah, I feel I had a lot of anxiety coming here.
Mm-hmm. So you feel more calm?
I feel a lot more calm. I typically have anxiety that follows me everywhere, and I don't have that at all right now for the first time in a really long time.
That's really fantastic.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, feels really good.
I made a believer out of you.
Yeah, you did.
Ironically, I feel clear-headed in those right now. I know I'm not clear-headed.
You're clear-headed but sleepy.
Yes, exactly. Right. Yes. I mean, just a really incredible experience. Really, wow. Just.
And I'd actually might want IV ketamine treatment. Man, I hope my fucking insurance will cover one or the other. FDA is not approved IV ketamine. Most insurance doesn't cover it. But this stuff, it had to be FDA approved. Hmm. I'm gonna have to really look into that. So what he's getting done, his channel probably helped pay for it. So I had no idea. It's been approved since 2019. Let's see. Is even if it's not FDA approved, I imagine where that guy got his infusion at and stuff that some doctors and places do off label. Though ketamine is administered in a variety of ways, oral, intranasal, IV. The only form approved by FDA in use for depression is a nasal spray. Well, I don't know why they don't approve this because it looks like it works. It doesn't look like if they approve it or not, people are already using it.
Man, I didn't want that to stop. I didn't want it to end. I want to stay in that space of like.
Let me ask you a question. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst and 10 being the most happy, the most relaxed, most calm, where were you before and where are you right now on a scale of 1 to 10?
I don't think you can use a scale for this.
Off the charts.
I don't think a scale is a good measure measuring tool for this 1 through 10. It doesn't work for this.
Not linear.
It's too great. It's too great.
It's probably been 30 minutes since our treatment. I feel a little dizzy and actually a little nauseous.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's not bad or overwhelming, but I wouldn't want to go for a jog right now, or I wouldn't want to read a book.
I thought he's supposed to stay there for 2 hours until.
You know.
Fortunately, the nausea passed in about 30 to 45 minutes, and the days following, I felt noticeably better. I wrote down my thoughts and recapped the experience in an article that you can read using the links below. Bridget also shares her experience with ketamine infusion treatments, whether we would do them again, and how long we noticed the positive effects from the infusions. Again, you can read that and more using the links below. Would you ever try a ketamine infusion treatment? Leave your answers in the comments section below. And thanks again for watching.